allowed a few people to come in and feel comfortable without it being big groups. And so that's good.
Okay, well, it is 12:04. And as my regulars know, I usually introduce at 12:03. So I guess we can go ahead and get started.
Right.
So welcome to everyone. And of course, I'm really glad you're here. And take the time now to mute yourself if you're not already muted. And I want you to know that today's presentation is being recorded and it will be added to our YouTube channel. You can also get to it from our Dixon at Home page from our website. And during the talk, when you have a question, go ahead and go to the bottom of your screen to the little chat icon and click on that and type in your question. And Beth will answer questions at the end of the talk. So Beth Mitchell is a 4th generation Memphian and 2nd generation creative. She's a lifelong lover of beautiful writing. Beth earned a BFA in graphic design from the University of Memphis, but it was while she was an art student at Mississippi University for Women in Columbus, Mississippi, where she was bitten by the calligraphy bug in a required calligraphy class. And it was love at first sight after that. And she has had her hand in some aspect of calligraphy ever since. Professionally, Beth has worked as an artist at a graphic design studio, an art director at advertising agencies, as a freelance artist, professional calligrapher, and is currently employed by Church of the Holy Communion in its communications department. Beth is also a founding member of the Memphis Calligraphy Guild. And of course, there is a Calligraphy Guild exhibition at the Dixon right now. And so make an appointment to go to the Dixon through our website and go see it. And Beth also enjoys teaching calligraphy and accepting calligraphy and watercolor commissions. So be sure to visit elizabethmitchell.com for contact information and to see more examples of her work. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Beth Mitchell.
Great. Thanks, Lindley, for the introduction. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. I just want to share my curiosity about calligraphy in the hope that you will learn something new today. Ultimately, I want to inspire you to embark on a journey just like I have and learn even more about calligraphy. First, a little personal background. I'm going to share my screen here. Can y'all see that okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. All right, let me give y'all a little taste of.
Hey, Beth, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. I think your papers that you're moving are hitting your microphone and they're really loud. So you might want to scoot them over a little bit.
Good, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, my curiosity was sparked as a child. My father made a living as a sort of a wordsmith. He was in the advertising business, working his way up from office boy to owning the agency. I can remember he used to delight in playing word games with his family, writing limericks and musical lyrics as a hobby. In his work, he employed graphic artists who created beautiful illustrations, logos, letterheads. I was very impressed by these amazing visuals that appealed to my artistic eye. As a teen, I began to notice typography, beautiful scripts and elaborate fonts. During the summer while I was in high school, I got to work in the ad agency and enjoyed looking through type catalogs. I thought that was the coolest thing. I would trace my name in a variety of exotic fonts, and that was just a thrill. My curiosity grew in college, and I registered for a required calligraphy course while I was working on my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Graphic Design. And that course ultimately changed my life. 35 years later, here we are, and I still have a curiosity about calligraphy today. More than a hobby, it informs my work each day. I am really hooked on the beauty of calligraphy. I am by no means a letter arts scholar, but this presentation is like a little stroll through the history to stop and look at some interesting and beautiful moments in the history of writing and calligraphy. And you see there where I say, I was a curious learner, but little did I know when I entered that calligraphy course in college, I was so full of anticipation. I was very excited about it. And then I found out that because I'm left-handed, I have to have all these special tools. I have to hold the pen in a certain way. I got very frustrated, and my poor professor, she could sense my frustration. And I guess it was a week or two into the course, she came over to me and she said, Beth, some of my best students have been left-handers. So I don't know if she made that up to encourage me, but that's really all I needed to hear. So I just persevered, and it was awkward at first, but after some practice, I overcame it. And so if there are any left-handers out there, don't be discouraged. If you think you'd like to pick up a pen someday, just give me a shout and I'll give you some tips. But and another thing, I should let y'all know, this opportunity that the Dixon has given the Calligraphy Guild, of which I'm a founding member, and by exhibiting at the Dixon has been such an excitement for us. And it's given me an opportunity to do a little teaching. Last week, I was able to lead a virtual workshop through the Dixon, and that was kind of a first for me. I've done programs at Calligraphy Guild meetings, and that's been great, but this was a big deal for me, and it went fine, and I think everybody learned something. But anyway, so that's just a little glimpse of my personal background. And so now we're just going to take a little stroll. This isn't by any means comprehensive or very thorough, but it touches on a few aspects of calligraphy that I thought you might find interesting. First of all, calligraphy, the word. It comes from the Greek kalos, meaning beauty, and graphene, meaning write. Calligraphos is a person who writes beautifully. Calligraphia, or calligraphy, was first used in the early 17th century. So let's start back at the very beginning of making marks. Cave paintings. Oops, I didn't enter my dates on there. I think as we scroll through, you'll see some dates. These are ancient forms of making marks. Cave paintings that were discovered, I believe it was in the early 1940s when the caves were discovered in France. And then cuneiform around the area of Mesopotamia, and hieroglyphics in Egypt. So here are a few little images. The cave paintings dated back to the 15,000, 13,000 BC. Surprisingly sophisticated, but definitely, see here, oops, skip ahead. It's just amazing to me that prehistoric man had that much sophistication. It's really beautiful in its simplicity. But marks made by man. Here we jump ahead where man is making symbols and has come up with a way to communicate. Cuneiform was written with an implement that was triangular in shape. It was a stylus made out of a reed. So the reed was used to press into clay tablets with these symbols, and that's how the beginning of communication using an implement. I've got a little timeline here across the top to help us kind of follow along the chronology. And then, of course, the hieroglyphics that we know about in Egypt, where symbols were becoming more recognizable in shape. You can see a bird and an eye, and I don't know exactly how they translate, but what we can see is that some of the symbols might be representing a concept. Others might be a symbol for an animal or an object. So just still the early beginnings of man communicating, but getting a little more sophisticated in the systems of communicating. Then the letter-like symbols begin to emerge with the Phoenician alphabet and the Greek alphabet. This was an amulet from 700 BC. It's a little bit soft, but you can see the one on the left, the image on the left, you can make out some symbols and markings. That was in the Middle East back in 700 BC. I wish I knew a size of that. I'm thinking it was fairly small. But here again, just so amazing and beautiful. And that we have a picture of it to look at is even more amazing. Here's a sample of the Greek alphabet that was etched into some Greek pottery. Another amazing example that has survived. The Romans. Now we're getting into more recognizable shapes. In fact, you'll see some of these shapes. Well, as an example on this particular slide where it says Romans, that is actually a font named Trajan. It's one of my most favorite fonts to use in my work. It has a classic feel, but you'll see in the next photograph that it very closely resembles the Roman letters that were incised in monuments and buildings. So that's quite a testament to the proportion and just the classic shapes and relationships to each other that survive today. And then we'll touch on another alphabet. I'll show you a picture of that, the rustic alphabet, and then the Unchill. Here is a photograph taken modern day that shows some fragments of monumental inscriptions. Research has told us that the artists that carved the letters into the stone first applied the letters with a brush. And then they went back with their chisel and incised those letters in the stone. And just beautiful. Rome, 144 AD, around the time of Trajan's column, if you remember, if that's a familiar point of history to you. Here is a sample of the rustic alphabet, which came out of the Roman capital. This is actually an image taken from one of my textbooks that I used in that calligraphy class. Jackie Svarin has a wonderful teaching manual called Written Letters that I use to this day. It's a great reference. But here she shows a sample of the rustic alphabet, and it's more condensed, you'll notice. And according to Jackie and some other references I've seen, the condensed alphabet was to save space. Vellum at that point in time was rare, and it was very expensive. So the condensed letter allowed them to get more on the page. But I kind of like it. It has a interesting, unique feel to it. This is the Unchill alphabet, much more rounded, and also something unique about the Unchill, and this goes as well for the rustic and the Roman. It's referred to as a majuscule. A majuscule means that, well, in modern day terms, it would be considered similar to an uppercase. Majuscule means that there's only one height of the letters. There are no small letters and large letters. Their majuscules are sort of on their own. Later, we'll see that smaller letters are introduced, and they're called minuscules. So the Unchill is just a majuscule, and it's one of my favorite styles of calligraphy. It's bold, it's round, it's got some unique letters. The D is especially unique. The M, I like to use it a lot in my calligraphy work. And that dates to the 4th to 8th century. It was used during the 4th and 8th century. You'll see many variations of Unchill. Some versions of it are lighter in weight. Some, you see some that are a little more condensed. But this was actually an alphabet that was done, an exemplar that was done by one of our calligraphy members back at in the earlier days of the Guild, Bill Womack. I don't know if some of you might be familiar with that name. He was the head of the graphic design department at the College of Art, and he was a member of the Guild and just beloved, but he was very talented, and he shared his knowledge with us, and we hung on every word whenever he was at a guild meeting. So that's Bill's version of the Unchill style. Then in the 9th century, the use of the what is called the half Unchill, we begin to see the introduction of the minuscule, the larger and smaller letter. The line spacing in between makes it especially appealing. So that's the half Unchill. It was used quite a bit in sacred writings that monasteries that the monks did as they were writing Bibles and things such as that. But it just has a beautiful feel. It was quicker to write, and so it became, I think, more popular. But it has a really, I think, a lovely feel to it, rhythmic. Now we get into some books that you might be familiar with. The Lindisfarne Gospel and the Book of Kells. These were referred to, the calligraphy in them was referred to insular scripts. Insular, as I found out, refers to the fact that they were created on an island. Insular means isle. So I thought that was something I didn't know. The Lindisfarne Gospel was written in northern England in the 8th century. Insular meaning island. The insular alphabet was also related to half Unchill, and it has some similarities. But the Lindisfarne Gospel, look at how decorative that is. It's just really amazing. And all of these images that I'm referring to, you can find online and kind of dig in a little deeper. There's a lot about the Lindisfarne Gospel, as well as the Book of Kells. Some of you may have heard of the Book of Kells. It was written in Ireland in the 9th century. Very decorative, lots of gold leaf gilding. And that is in Dublin, Ireland. I believe it's at Trinity College, and you can go there and visit on your next trip to Ireland. Here's a big gap, or here's a big span of time. The 8th and 14th century. Carolingian in the 8th century, and textura, black letter, and I left a little type on there. Sorry about that. This is the Carolingian hand. Again, some reference here from my reference book I used in college. Charlemagne, when he came into power in the 8th century, he decided that he wanted for religious texts to be transcribed into with a much more beautiful hand. And this alphabet, or this style of calligraphy, was created for that purpose. To my eye, it looks a little similar to the half Unchill. You'll see it has a slight slant to it, which makes it a little more, I don't know, rhythmic and graceful. And also the line space gives it an open and airy feel, which kind of gives it a little bit of elegance, I think. So anyway, but that was quite an undertaking to transcribe all of the religious documents of that time. Here, a little bit later, there's a shift to more of a condensed style. Textura is one name for it. Black letter is another. They're all, black letter is really more of an overarching name for this style. Textura was one name for it. There were others. It really depended. Seems like whatever area of Europe had its own name for this font, but it was very packed, very vertical, not a lot of letter spacing. It's been described as a picket fence because of the verticals and the space in between are very consistent and close to the same width. So that's a distinctive part of it. And a little serif on the ends are kind of a diamond shape. It has a lovely, I like the look of it. It's not, maybe it's not the most legible style, but it sure has a, I don't know, an appeal to it for me. Now this is an interesting piece of calligraphy that was done in the 16th century, right about the time that the printing press was discovered by, or not discovered, was created by Gutenberg. But I sort of happened upon this in my research and just really fell in love with it. It's just a really beautiful piece of work. This was a piece of work commissioned by the Emperor Rudolph in the mid-16th century. And his scribe, Georg Boschk, was an incredible calligrapher. But the interesting thing about this, this book is that Boschk did all of the calligraphy in the book. And then it was actually after Boschke's death that Georg Hofnagel came in and illustrated the book while Rudolph was still in power. So I've just, I've selected a few pages for y'all to look at. And this is, this piece of work is actually at the Getty Museum in California. And just a couple of years ago, they have released the images to the public domain. So if you go on their website, you can just pore over all the pages in this incredible book. I just find it delightful and inspiring. So here's just a taste here. A lot of gilding, a lot of flourishing, a lot of decorative strokes. So Bousque did his work from 1560 to 1562. And I believe Bousque died in 75, as I recall. And then Hofnagel, Georg Hofnagel, was hired to come in and add the illustrations, which if you look at this piece, I mean, it's almost, when Bousque did his work, it's almost as if he was expecting someone to come in and lay in an illustration. So it's just beautiful. Amazing. After the printing press, there was, over a period of time, there was a decline on the emphasis of calligraphy, as you can imagine. So it was in the 19th century that there was a great revival of calligraphy, and it was mainly attributed to a calligrapher, Edward Johnston. He was a British calligrapher, and he really dug in and studied some old scripts and came up with his own system of teaching and just sort of reviving the whole art of calligraphy. And then we've got Donald Jackson, who I think you're all familiar with. Donald Jackson was the artistic director for the St. John's Bible. And then we'll see a picture of that. Edward Johnston's book, Writing and Illuminating and Lettering, that's the cover image of one of the editions of his book. The image on the left is actually from a sketchbook of his, and he must have really been excited about calligraphy. Look at all the different styles and flourishes and little decorative elements that he's got in his sketchbook. It looked like he was very passionate about learning all about historical scripts and trying them out and then conveying that with his students. He wrote that book in 1906. And then here we have a sample spread from the St. John's Bible. I hope you all have had a chance to see the show at the Dixon. It's absolutely stunning. And if you haven't seen it, please get there before it goes. I think it's up through January the 10th. It's just remarkable. Handwritten and illustrated Bible, the first one, and I believe it's 500 years. And it's just an incredible work of art. Donald Jackson is the artistic director. And if you go to the Dixon, they have a video that gives you a little bit of an introduction and touches on his process. It's just fascinating. He had a team of calligraphers and illustrators that wrote the entire Bible. And it's just, it's quite just something to behold. he had the idea. I think it was a dream of his, and he expressed that dream when he was I believe he was at a conference, and somehow was in a conversation with a Benedictine monk from St. John's in Minnesota. And they were intrigued by the idea, and over a period of time, they commissioned Donald Jackson to do just that. And the conversation, I think, happened maybe in 1998, just before the millennia. And so that was something that he wanted to do, and that they wanted to do. And it was, I believe it took him 10 or 11 years to complete it, but it's quite an accomplishment. So at this point, I'd like to really give a shout out to the Memphis Calligraphy Guild. It's been a really important part of my journey in learning calligraphy, and it's a wonderful group. We started, we had our first meeting. In fact, I'll show you a picture here that I ran across, a little flyer that I did back in 1987. It's not too bad, but kind of makes me giggle every time I see it. But it worked. We're 33 years strong, and it's a great group of folks, and you don't have to be a calligrapher to join. We have all levels of calligraphers. We have some people that come and enjoy the programs. They love they're calligraphy appreciators, and they just love to learn about the rich history. And it's just a really great group. Right now we're meeting virtually, but we do meet once a month, and it's just a fun group. We will welcome anyone that appreciates calligraphy. We've sponsored a lot of workshops. We've had famous calligraphers come in and lead workshops, and those are always very exciting. We try and do that twice a year. And at our monthly meetings, we have interesting programs on some aspect of calligraphy or the book arts. So I would really encourage any one of you to check us out. We have a website. It's calligraphyguild.com, and we'd just love for you to check us out.
Well, thank you, Beth. That was very good. There are some questions.
Okay.
And I personally am curious about lefties doing calligraphy. I'm right-handed, but I sometimes, I think I told you, sometimes I write things with my left hand.
Okay.
I kind of work all my life to be able to write with my left hand too. And so so I know that I have to kind of hold the pen a little bit differently when I write with my left hand. So
Right.
do lefties, when they're doing calligraphy, I know there's a certain way that people that are right-handed hold their pen. Are lefties trained to hold their pen the same way or hold it a different way?
Well, because we are writing from left to right, if you're left-handed, that's most left-handers, not all, but most left-handers hook their hand to the right. So that would make a mess if you're doing calligraphy with the ink. So the way I was taught, I kind of created a right hand with my left hand by backhanding. It's very awkward at the beginning, but once you get accustomed to it, it's not so bad. Also, left-handers, if they turn their paper a little bit, that helps. Now, some left-handers turn their paper sideways or crazy directions. I never have even tried that. I just started by, I'm kind of creating a right hand by backhanding. So your hand is ahead of your writing instead of behind it. Yeah.
Okay, sounds challenging. Okay, so
Beth?
another thing, go ahead,
Hey,
Peggy.
Peggy.
I saw a left-hander in one of the workshops that I was in who wrote right to left. I
Oh
don't
my
know
goodness.
I don't know how he did it, but he did it. It blew my mind.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and it was.
I've never heard of that.
And the spacing was right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That sounds like one of the hardest things on earth to do.
Well, I was very determined. I was so excited about taking that class. I would do anything.
Well, it's
So
good.
it was awkward for a couple of weeks, but with practice and some relaxation and just, realizing that this is just practice, and I could see just little incremental improvements the more I did it, and I just stuck with it.
So you showed us a condensed alphabet, and I know that there are official hands in calligraphy. I've learned that from you and Peggy. And so is the condensed alphabet an official hand, or is it just a way of writing?
Well, there's certain styles or hands that are more condensed. Now, if you look, for instance, this, I don't know if y'all can still see the slide that's up now.
Yeah, we can see it.
That is an italic hand. And usually an italic is much more open. But this piece was done by our friend Bill Womack, and he liked to add variations when he did his lettering. And this is a very condensed italic. It's bold and heavy, so it has kind of a unique feel. But it's the condensing of letters is kind of a variable or a variation that you can add to really any style if you choose.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, Juliet pointed out that the word, I don't know if I'm going to say any of this right, majuscule, she said she's not sure how it's spelled, is similar to the Spanish word mayúscula, which simply means uppercase.
Oh, wow. Oh, how neat.
Kind of Juliet helping to educate us a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I did not know that. That's interesting.
And one thing that seems to be a little confusing about some of the hands is that in some of the examples you showed, the S's look like R's.
Yes.
So is there an explanation for why some S's look like R's?
I don't know what the explanation is, but I know there are some S's that looks like F's in the Chancery script, maybe. Peggy, maybe you can help me out with this. And for a while I thought, and then I realized that in certain, in fact, even in colonial times, I think the letter S as a variation, I don't think it was used, all of the time, but I think it was a variation to have it look more like an F. It had an ascender and a descender on it. So the R and the S, it's I don't know where that comes from. I wish I could answer it. Peggy?
I think, Beth, it started with the black letter. Doing an S is difficult because you've got a loop on the top that goes to the right and a loop on the bottom that goes to the left, and it tends to take up space. And by changing it into an R, you got rid of the loop on the bottom. And then after a while, people just started playing with the letters. And I think that's where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know it for sure, but that would be my guess.
It's an interesting question. I'm curious now. I got to go dig that up.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good. Thanks to both of you for your input on that. Sue wants to know, were most of the writings done by monks? So was most calligraphy done by monks?
I would say certainly before the printing press, I would say a majority was done in a monastery.
And nunnery.
And nunnery. Thank you. Yes, I would say so.
Okay, and the last question I have typed in here is from our curatorial assistant, Mallory Sharp. She first says, thank you, Beth. And then she says, can you say a little bit about your favorite calligraphy piece or project you have ever created?
Oh, gosh. Well, I will tell y'all about a project that I took on this summer. I was commissioned to do 2 pieces that were going to be displayed side by side that were 5 feet high on both pieces. It took a lot of planning. They were precise documents that I was going to be transcribing was one, which was an acrostic. And that was, I had to actually rig up a special table to accommodate the paper because, you know, if you're working on something that large with ink at that scale, you have to manage your paper. I was able to find a really nice paper that came on rolls. So that in itself kind of took it into a different, I had never taken on a project of that scale. So, but just the layout and the revisions and the approvals and it was a complex project, but it was very, I enjoyed it very much because it had some illustration, it had some illumination, I had to do some gilding, I did some illustration, illustrated border, and it had a lot of steps, and I just love doing that.
Well, it sounds like it was beautiful.
I was pleased with it, and my client was pleased with it. So yeah, it was good.
Well, that's what counts. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is, those are all the questions, although Juliet said, thank you so much, Beth and Lindley. And so I'm glad that Juliet and everybody else were here. Thank you all so much. If you have any last comments or if you want to just say thank you and bye, you guys can all unmute and say thanks real quick before we end the meeting.
Beth, you did a great job.
Great job, Beth.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Great to see
Thank you, Bethy.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for joining.
Yes, it was all very good. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Linda Boswell says that was excellent. Thank you.
Oh, Linda, thank you. That means a lot. Linda's a teacher.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Lindley.
You have done now that all your work for me is done, you can relax a little bit. My gosh, I have worked you to death the last few weeks.
It's been great. It's really, really been great. Thank you so much.
I agree. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm sure we'll be in touch some more.
Very good. I look forward to it.
Okay. Bye,
Thanks, everybody.